we'd go walking through the foresty bits, and that's sort of what we did almost every day in the afternoons and on the weekends. It was like our backyard. Sitting there, we made a tiny little fire. It was during the August winds, but we were in a sheltered zone. The constant blowing of the wind just never stopped. As we stopped at this one little area and made a little fire, Dave had his lunch there. There's a little fork in the creek. I was sitting with my back to the fork in this creek. It was like a Y shape. I was sitting with my back to it. I felt a bit uneasy for some reason. So I turned around and sat. So David's to my right. The fire's in between us. And Dave's to my right. We're looking downward toward the big Y part. So I started getting a bit of a weird feeling even before that, because all of a sudden the wind had stopped. All the insects had stopped. The cicadas were going crazy at that time too. It was just a constant humming of these insects and chirping and all that. And everything went dead silent. You could literally hear a pin drop. It was an eerie feeling. Yeah, everything just went dead silent. Couldn't hear any insects, nothing. And it almost even felt like a weird pressure in the air. Like if you were to walk into a room sometimes and, two people have had an argument and you can sort of feel there's a tension there. You get this weird feeling. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and the fire's sort of dying down at this point. So we had about 5 meter radius where there wasn't much grass or not substantial enough to hide anything. I hear a bang first, and it was a kangaroo just jumping, and it looked like this. Here's the weird thing. I know I've mentioned this wasn't a huge yowie. This was actually something only about the size of one of my daughters are, like 8-9-year-old. It wasn't absolutely huge. It was quite small. It sort of looked like it went for the kangaroo, but then noticed us and ducked behind this stump that was about 80 centimeters and quite round, almost like a barrel. It got behind there and it's crouched down, and I could see its hands, and its hands were sort of almost together, and it's sitting there looking at us. So I was paralyzed by, I was startled at first and then paralyzed by fear. I thought, well, I'm realizing what this is, but my mind couldn't grasp what it was that I was seeing. It had the freakiest eyes I've ever seen. It was almost like teddy bear eyes, in the sense that it didn't have much brownness to it. It was more like black buttons, but very shiny, pierced straight through you. To me, it felt like it was hypnotic. This thing was smaller than me, but it terrified me, just absolutely terrified me. Well, I was too scared to even get up and run. I think Dave was in the same position, which is why we sat there for, I'd say almost a minute. Well, it felt like an eternity, so it's hard to say. It could have even been 2 minutes. I don't think I've ever run harder or faster than in my life. This thing had followed the kangaroo, but then deviated and hid behind the log that was still right there in front of us.
What colour was this thing?
The darkest part of it was its eyes. The thing about it, its face it did look monkeyish in a way, and for a while there I told myself that this was some monkey that escaped from, we used to get, I think it was called the Ashton Circus, that used to come through, and they actually stopped at Redbank Plains. I always thought to myself, did a monkey just escape? But you know what, this thing didn't really look like a monkey. It did in some ways, but it didn't in others. It was crouched down. It literally had its face resting almost on its hands, and its hands were right in front of it.
Did you see hair?
Yes, I did. Now, the top of the hair was actually spiked up. It looked like someone had like a long blade 4 or blade 5 hair going all the way around, and it was relatively pretty even. But it did get longer. Now, I do remember also seeing that as it went for this kangaroo, the arms were really long. It was really quick. And I did notice that the side view hair was different coloured. It was more of a browny, gingery, but very dark. When I say gingery, it's not light ginger like a red-headed person or anything like that.
And that was different really, to the hair on the head?
Yes. The hair on the head was actually darker. I think mainly because it was shorter. But I know that the fingers were really thick and they were black. Really shiny black, almost, which the face was too. The weird thing that I noticed that I didn't actually put together until a couple of years later when I saw the Diane Foss movie, that Gorilla in the Mist. while we were sitting there staring at it in terror, it would just throw glances at us, but it would pretend to look down and look around, if that makes any sense. It would occasionally hold you stare for a little while, but it would break the stare off and it would look down. It was like it was looking down to its left, and it was an exaggerated, deliberate evasion of eye contact. When I saw that movie with Gorillas in the Mist, that lady was telling people, don't stare, directly into its eyes, because that's a sign of aggression or something like that. While it would stare at us and make sure it had us locked in its sights, it would also break eye contact and look away for a few seconds. So I remember thinking, this looks like a juvenile, like a baby one. It doesn't look like a big, still thinking monkey at this time. I didn't really think of Bigfoot, because I didn't think at the time in Australia that we had Bigfoot. It wasn't a topic that anyone spoke about. It was avoiding eye contact. It sat there. It didn't show any aggression, but like I said, the eyes peering into you was, after we'd seen it, I'm pretty sure throughout the whole thing there was, and this is where I really wanted to talk to someone that might be able to shed some insight to me, whether anyone else has felt like it was almost like a supernatural experience. With the way the wind, the insects, everything had, to me, and this is why I wish I could see David again to talk to him, felt like we were in a whirlwind there for a few seconds. Like in the middle of a whirlwind, how they say everything goes quiet, and it really felt all surreal and strange, and I want to know if others have had that kind of experience with it as well.